Honestly, I was thinking about this earlier. If there's anybody that shouldn't be running the tech for this thing, it's me. This is just a joke. Like, if anybody's listening to this right now, it's, the stars aligned and I just didn't mess anything up, but I'm just an absolute disaster when it comes to tech. This is a little bit name droppy, but I had John Pat. We've been working with John Patitucci over the last couple of weeks, putting a course together. How cool! Very cool. And John's been like phoning me, and my phone's broken. So my phone, I've got like loads of mud and junk in the bottom of here.
Caked in the bottom.
It doesn't charge. It doesn't charge.
Yeah.
It doesn't charge. I can't charge it. I have to, if anybody's listening to this, I've got this wooden kind of, like, I don't know what these are called. It's like a contactless charger. So I have to use this contactless
wireless charge.
Because there's so much, wireless charge, because there's so much mud in the bottom of my phone, because I've dropped it so many times in the garden that a charger won't go in the bottom anymore. So so essentially my phone is always on like 5%. And then if I use it to make a call, it's just, you can barely hear me. And so I sent John a video. We use this thing like Loom internally, right? And we're Loom pals, aren't we?
Yes, we.
Obviously, it was pen pal. Yeah, pen pals back in the day. Now we're Loom pals. We send videos to each other. We're Loom pals, and I sent John a Loom, said, "I'm so sorry for being so crap at answering my phone," and I held up my phone. I'm like, honestly, my phone's broken, it's not working. So yeah.
So what is that?
Sorry,
like,
John.
Is that you can't be bothered? Just like you want to get to? Is tech just for you like a means to an end? What is that?
I have got I think that it was born out of a school. When I was 13, there was this computer class, and it was the first time I went into a computer class was when I was 13. And there was, for anybody young listening to this is going to sound completely bonkers, but there was 3 computers to a room of 30 people. So each, you were separated into groups of 10, and you all had a computer. And so your time on the computer was like, do the math, right? The class is an hour long. It's bonkers. Like, you had sort of like 5 minutes on the computer, basically, in your group of 10. And every time I used to get on this computer, whichever one of the 3 it was just a nightmare. I couldn't get anything to work. I'd be standing there. The 9 people that had been using the computer before me, it had worked perfectly for them. I sat there and everything just went wrong. It wouldn't work. The teacher had to get involved. He's like, Divine, get off the computer. It was like a running joke in the class. And that, for whatever reason, has like transferred into this like mass technophobia, like real. Like, it's real. Like, I kind of hate technology in a weird way.
Wow.
I don't hate it, but I just don't like you. Do you know, sort of like, somebody's like, the new iPhone's come out.
You're like, no
whatever.
way.
That's the worst bit of news for me. I'm like, I don't want a new iPhone.
Because for you, right, if it works.
I've got my old one.
Yeah, like if it's working, and even if it's caked with mud and it's 5%, as long as it's working, you don't want to go to that new thing because you already have the thing. But isn't that the crazy thing about like childhood trauma? And maybe trauma is a strong word there, but when people put that stuff in your head, like, yeah, it's a joke, but geez, all these years later, right, you're like, oh, I'm not good at technology or whatever, but maybe that's not true.
Yeah,
it's not necessarily true.
It's like it's just this shit that I tell myself, basically. It's absolutely not true. Like, it kind of is, because I think that I'm bad with technology because I've got this, inner demon being like, hey, Divine, you're really crap. This is not going to work for you. This is not going to work for you. And it seeps into everything as well. Like, any bit of technology, like Instagram makes an update. End of my day. Seriously, I'm just like, get out of my face, Instagram. It was fine how it was. Somebody's like, hey, you should check out TikTok. I kid you not. I went onto TikTok. I couldn't fit. And like, bear in mind how popular TikTok is, right? Everybody, the world's using TikTok. 3-year-olds are living their best life on TikTok.
Right.
They can figure out the interface and make it work. I had no clue, Ian. I was like, look, I couldn't work out how to use it. I was like, what the? It's crazy. So there, I'm stumped. I'm stumped, man. I've got no words. And we'll talk about that more because obviously today we're talking about social media.
Yeah.
But I just want to obviously welcome everybody who's listening to the podcast. This is our initial. This is what's it called when you set off into the sea for the first time? The inaugural.
Yeah, the inaugural.
Yeah.
But you've done a lot of episodes.
Run.
You've done a lot of episodes before this. This is just, you're picking it back up. You're picking up the mantle again.
Yeah. Well, we thought, Ian and I were speaking a couple of weeks ago, and I'm not exactly sure where the idea came from, but I was just like, hey, dude, we should do a podcast. Because Ian, you're obviously involved a lot in SBL at the minute. Well, you're fully on board, aren't you? You're in the fold.
I'm in the zone, man. Happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're absolutely over the moon to have you, man. Absolutely. Like, seriously, I can remember, and obviously we're going to be talking about social media today. And weirdly, that's the first time I saw you. Actually, I saw you for the first time on YouTube, maybe once, one or two times. But when I first was like, who is this Ian guy? It was through social media that I found you. So it kind of, it links to today's episode.
Yeah.
I think that we're going to be talking a lot about social media. But just for anybody that's wondering, this is our first show. We're going to be doing it weekly. We've put that out there for us to, we set ourselves the target to do that. And we're basically just going to be talking what we feel are interesting topics for musicians to gab on about, basically.
Absolutely.
We're just going to be shooting the shit about stuff that we love, like social media, which is a whole thing that all musicians nowadays are going to be grappling with. What channels you should be using? Should you be using it at all? Is it going to progress your career? Like, there's a lot of questions that we can get into. And if you are listening to this on Spotify, on iTunes, on any of those networks, make sure that you like and subscribe as well to the podcast, and share it with a bass buddy. Bass buddy, can we use that?
Bass buddy,
that
absolutely.
Sounds pretty cool, doesn't it? So share it with a bass buddy and help get the word out about what we're doing here. But just to kick us off, Ian, in terms of social media channels, right? Is there, because it's a question, I suppose, that I think that magazines, when we were coming up, right, as young youths playing bass, the way that we found out about great bass players, who the next cool bass player was, or the legends of the past, and all of that cool stuff, the way that we did that was actually through magazines, right? Of
course.
And now, my question to you is, do you think that social media is taken that place? Is this where people are finding out about people or not?
Of course, 100%. I think, all you have to do is just ask around, and people talk about like, oh, what's your Instagram, or oh, what are you doing on, what are you doing on TikTok? I think, obviously this is just going to change. It's a moving target, but it's about where the attention is. And the attention is not at the mailbox waiting for Bass Player magazine to arrive, which is what I did. And I presume, because I'm 42. How old are you?
Dude, 42.
Yes. So we
like bold bass twins.
That's right. I mean, so you and I were probably similarly across the pond, right? Waiting with bated breath at the mailbox to get the new issue of Bass Player. And that's where the attention was, right? You get it. You're like, oh, all these transcriptions, skip. Just give me the gear, man. I want to.
Yeah. What? Yeah, you're reading the interview and you're like, dude, I don't care where you're touring or who you're playing with. I just want to know what gear you're playing. Just show me the gear. And then if it was a tiny little bit on gear, oh man, I was so pissed. I was like, that's what I want the main article about.
Oh, I know. It's so funny. I mean, and so that's where the attention was. And now the attention is on mobile. It's on your phone. And, I think that magazines have made a really an attempt to jump into social, and some have done it better than others. But that platform, at least for musicians, right now, I think that TikTok is coming up in a big way, but I still think Instagram is the place where I feel like everyone is. So it's hard to ignore. It's hard to say, oh, well, it's a fad. It's not a fad. It's where everyone is looking. It's all the eyeballs are there. So you got to be there.
Agreed, man. Agreed. Yeah, and just to jump off that, like I am a little sad, honestly, about the magazines. I don't think any of them have made the jump into digital because I think the foundations of it completely changed. It's not about moving from a physical magazine to, hey, let's now just print blog articles.
Right.
I think that the actual users' habits just completely changed.
Right.
So I think that we're in this weird mid-shift between, we had that before, that's how the reviews were there, the interviews were there, like all of that stuff was in the magazine, and now it's transitioned into all of these different platforms, and I think that transition has left holes. I think that it's filled holes in certain ways, and it's made it much more open and so much more accessible that now you can be an 8-year-old bass player and you can have like a 50,000 or 100,000 other bass players following you, right? So it's really opened up in a great way. But on the flip side, I think that it's for the review side of things and maybe the like more in-depth cool interviews with these sort of like super bass stars. That's kind of what I think needs to bubble up to the surface somehow. And how that's going to happen, like, I'm not exactly sure. Like, we've talked about it internally, obviously me and you at SBL, and the thing that we've talked about a lot is how do we actually become like a cultural center? Because Bass Player Magazine was that cultural center.
I agree.
How do we create that online using, and maybe that's through social channels, maybe it's not, but just blue sky in it. We want to do that. That's what we want to do. We want to fill in the gaps that the magazines disappearing have created, but also use all of the new tools as well, and the new social channels have given us in the mix as well. So it's a great. I think it's moving in a really fantastic direction. It's really exciting.
I think it's exciting too.
Really exciting.
I mean, I definitely lament, but we're 42, so we're old guys. So we're going to lament the things that we remember when you had to just use your ears and, no one was, slowing anything down and transcribing. You just had to, you were constantly rewinding the CD, and you bump it, the Discman, and thank God you got that anti-skip.
Cassette, yeah.
Yeah. But it's so interesting to hear, like, at the beginning when you're talking about being so tech averse, I first became aware of you, of course, on YouTube. I mean, it was you and Marlo. Remember Marlo DK?
Dude, Marlo DK was instrumental in the start of SBL.
Really?
Have I told you that story? Oh, dude.
Tell me.
Dude, it all stems back to Marlo.
Yeah.
It actually all stems back to there's a couple of kind of, these points where just the, serendipity steps in. There's just like this complete fork in the road that you don't even realize at the time. And you look back and you're like, holy shit, if that hadn't happened, I could be just in a completely different space in my life right now. But I was, somebody had said, hey, there's this thing called YouTube, you should check it out. Not in that you should check it out and put bass lessons on it. They were just like, you should check it out and watch some old concerts that are online now. I was like, what? They were like, yeah, you can watch like Steve Vai and Van Halen and stuff online. I was like, come on. Eruption was the first thing I watched on YouTube.
Incredible.
Like, what else is there to watch? Of course it's going to be Eruption, right? So anyway, I went to the local internet cafe. The guy showed me, he was like, this is an internet browser. Here's how you put in, I'm like, dude, so embarrassing.
No, it's amazing.
I'm like 26. This was like 12 years ago. Like 12 years ago. Yeah, I know.
It's crazy.
So he's like, this is a URL. Yeah, this is YouTube. So I sat there and I was watching, Eddie do his thing, Eruption. And then I just thought at the time I had to take a bunch of time off because I just had this thing called focal distortion. Still got this thing called focal distortion, which is this whole other side that we can talk about one day.
Yes, I'd love to.
But so I wasn't playing at the time, but I could play for around like 10 or 15 minutes. And the small backstory is that I was skint, man. I didn't have any money. I couldn't get all I'd done to that point in my life was gig.
Yes.
all the time. That's all I'd done really. So I had like rent to pay and stuff like that. And basically the doctors had said, oh, by the way, you can't play for the next 6 months. So I couldn't earn any money, but I could play for around 10 minutes a day. So I was watching these. I put in like bass lesson on YouTube. Marlo came up.
Yeah.
And Marlo at the time wasn't. So if anybody listening to this who doesn't know who Marlo DK is, he's the OG dude.
The OG.
He's like the OG of bass lessons online.
Yes.
And he was doing these. What a cool guy as well, man. Oh, Marlo.
Funky.
Thomas, if you're listening, man, dude, you're just so funky.
The best.
Damn.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he's playing, and he's like doing cool riff breakdowns, but he's not speaking.
Right.
I was like, I was like, maybe I could do that. Maybe I could do like a little lesson or something. I'll break down the riff. I saw like a little angle for me. I was like, he's not speaking. He's doing really well. Maybe I could sort of like do a bit more of a breakdown of what's going on in some stuff. And the idea was, and maybe I'll be able to teach through Skype. Maybe I'll be able to teach people via
Like
Skype.
one-on-one lessons.
Yes, and pay the damn rent, right? So I started uploading YouTube videos, and I was doing some Skype things, and I can't read, it's fuzzy, man, but I was doing some Skype lessons, and then I emailed Marlon, DK Thomas, right? So I emailed him, and I was like, dude, I'm thinking about, and I can't even remember, it was some business-based thing. I think that this is what it was. I remember I'd uploaded like 2 or 3 YouTube lessons, and then I was like, hey, I'm going to create a business. It's going to be an online school and stuff like that. I emailed Thomas. I was like, hey, I've got this idea, da-da-da-da-da. And he just emailed me back, and he was like, look, man, he was like, don't stop worrying about making money and just put loads of stuff out there for free before you even think about that. Because at the time I had maybe like 50 subscribers, and he had like probably like 50,000 subscribers. He was like, dude, stop worrying about it. Just, create value. Yeah. That's what I'm paraphrasing, but that's what he was saying. Just freaking create value.
Wow, that was ahead of his time.
Well,
that thinking, right?
I mean, massively, massively, yeah. So I was like, okay, he knows, he's got 50,000 subscribers. I'm going to, stop listening to myself. I'm going to listen to him. I'm just going to do what he said. So I forgot about, monetizing it all, and just created a load of value, started uploading regular YouTube videos. And that was the beginning, really, of SBL, sort of like specifically the YouTube channel. And then later on, it was like, okay, how do I was still teaching via Skype, but I was like, okay, I think we can do something other than teaching Skype. Let's, sell some online courses and stuff like that. But it all kind of maps back all the way to Marlo DK.
That's cool. Incredible. I mean, because I feel like you two were the only people doing it, And so it's so interesting to me, because I became aware of you via that, and then I would have had no idea, if I didn't get to know you, that you felt tech-averse, or that you felt like, oh, okay, a new platform shows up, it's TikTok, and you're like, no way. New iPhone comes out, no way. But I wonder, Scott, if that comes back to this thing of like, when you had an opportunity, you saw YouTube and you saw an opportunity, you saw an angle, and there was a need. There was a desperate need for you to pay the rent, to do the next thing, whatever it was. I mean, I have my own reasons for jumping into social as hard as I did. But at the time, I mean, I love that. For you, it was like, okay, like you describe it as a fork in the road. And those situations often make, I think, for the best innovation and for the radical like tear down of barrier. Like, you're not thinking in that moment like, oh, I don't know, because I don't really know how to use this internet thing. You're just looking at that and seeing opportunity. And I think that's a really cool distinction, right? Like, if you see the opportunity and you see a path to how it benefits you, your business, your life, your trajectory, you'll do it. I mean, I know that about you. Like, if you see the other side, you go, yep, we're going to figure it out. It doesn't matter. Like, I think...
Oh, yeah, like... Yeah, just to add, we're going to figure it out. Like, that thing there, just to add, and I suppose that I should have mentioned that earlier as well, I am really tech-averse, but when it came down to it, back then, it wasn't Squarespace. It was, like, much more complicated, but I knew that I had to figure out how to record myself, so I had to get a camera, I did all of that. Hey, look at my earliest YouTube videos. You know, they're crap, right? But I figured it out. And then I had to build a website. So, and there was no Squarespace. So I had to go build a actual website, right? And look on YouTube about how to build websites. And it was a whole nightmare. But yeah, got through it. Like, I can remember it took me like about 3 hours how to embed a YouTube video onto a website, because I didn't know how to do it. So I was like, how do I do this? What's an embed code?
Right.
Like, what even is that? I didn't even know the word. So I was like, how to put YouTube video in website.
It's incredible.
But it was great, man. It was great. It was actually really exciting trying to figure it all out. It really was.
Yeah, because you had vision. I think that's something that, when we talk about social, and if you talk to your friends about social and they go, oh yeah, I should probably really do it. Yeah. And you go, yeah, you maybe should. Or if there's not a fire, it's just like playing an instrument, right? If there's not this just burning desire to learn the thing, to get better, it has to be passion. It has to be kind of like I want to use this word, like desperate. You kind of have to feel like I have to do this. Like, if I have an option to do it or not do it, I have to do it. And that feeling gets you through any, I feel like, technique barrier, right?
Yeah, you've just got to push through, right? You've just got to make it happen. So it's cool to be scared about things. And I'm sure that there's a bunch of guys out there that are like super scared of doing social media for a multitude of reasons, whether it be the technology barrier or imposter syndrome. They don't want to put themselves out there or anything like that. But ultimately, you've just got to, if you want to be in it, you've just got to push through and just almost make yourself do it, and then at least do it and then reflect on it then. I think that as humans are weird little beasts, right? We just always worry about the thing before we've even done it.
Of course.
We're like, oh, I'm not sure. You don't know because you've not done it.
Right.
So just do it for 4 weeks and then reflect on it. Should you have done it is a much better question than should you.
I just remember a similar thing for me, beginning of COVID. Everything shuts down, and then you said, hey, could you get to a studio and do some content for SBL? And I said, I would love to, but I literally can't. No studios are open. It was, and then you said, well, maybe we'll send you, a light and a couple of things, and you can do it on your own. And I went, oh dear God. Because similarly, man, I really love audio tech. So preamps, compressors, pedals, all that stuff, I'm really into it. But in terms of lighting, any kind of video gear, cameras, I'm just like, oh my God, I can't do it. But because, but because of that need, I had to figure it out. You're like, well, we're sending you a light kit. I'm like, oh my God, here we go. And and then it's a process, but oh man, what a cool opportunity to learn that new thing, and it comes as there is a fork. I could have said, oh, no, I'm just going to wait. I don't know. I could have taken that fork. I'm so glad I didn't. But instead I said, oh my God, all right. I'll be, in calls talking about
this
ISO
is every
settings.
Day, though, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. This is every day, though, isn't it? Like, I think everybody's living this specific thing that we're talking about right now. Everybody's living that every single day. Just like opting out of the thing that you really should.
Yeah.
It's just so easy to opt out, isn't it? It's scary. It's something that I really need to get a handle on myself, actually. I think
we all do.
That's the muscle that I'm trying to build, man. Like, that's a muscle that I'm really, really interested in building in terms of, because I think it's so complex, isn't it? There's like the imposter syndrome, there's the fear, there's all of these things intertwined that stops you actually just pulling the trigger and putting yourself out there. And for me, I think that ultimately that can be so damaging in terms of like the trajectory of your entire existence. And we only, in terms of like, I think I'm only here once. This is it. I'm living it out. I'm doing my thing. And if I let things like that into my life, it's just bad. And the killer is, I know it's happening. I know it happens every single day. Right. So I'm sort of really, really trying to be conscious of it at the minute.
Because if you believe the lie that tech teacher in your grade school told you that, oh, Divine's on the computer, no one's going to get it. And if you believe that, it colors the rest of your life, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it's just, and what brings it home to me is that when I look at some of the most successful people that I follow, and I don't mean like successful in like you could be living in the back end of beyond in Timbuktu and have love and sort of like an amazing family and a support network, and you could have success. I define that as success.
Of course.
So when I say success, I think it's
happiness.
It's just important to sort of, yeah, exactly. Right? But when I look at sort of career success, a lot, not all, but a lot of the guys that have that, they have this kind of barrier. It's almost these kind of blinkers on where they don't let themselves get in the way of it, right? They just sort of like, they can just push through and just make it happen. And they put themselves out there where I might be on the back foot a little bit. I'm not sure I should do this. And I have pushed through in the past and made stuff happen. But my question to myself is, I've probably been on the back foot more than actually leaning out over that cliff, and how do I actually get myself into a mental kind of frame where I'm actually leaning over the edge of the cliff every single day and failing more than actually, succeeding. Because if we're failing all the time and just be comfortable with that, I think that we're going to have just a much better, fulfilling journey through life. Because, and just what an amazing chance to learn as well.
I know.
I can remember like playing with one thing that jumps to mind for me. I was like playing with Gary Novak last year. I was like, this is Gary Novak. I was
Legend.
Like, this is bonkers. For you guys listening, it's like he's a drummer, right? And at the time, and I was like, and I was right in the midst of it. I was like, why don't I do stuff like this more often? Like, why don't I just sort of like put myself out there and do this more often? Because when I do, it's so much fun, but it's just a lot of inner talk. So anyway.
Well, man,
personal stuff that we got to deal with.
But that's huge. I mean, it's so fascinating, Scott, because when we had our first Skype call, our very first Skype call, talking about doing maybe a course, or, you were just like, hey, can we jump on Skype and talk? And I remember being kind of nervous. And dude, I've told this story so many times, but you said, oh, wouldn't it be fun too, kind of at the end of the call, we're kind of just blue skying it, as you like to say. And you said, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we did like a funk thing, where you did like a funk course and you're talking about maybe funk through the ages. So you're talking about, the beginning with Larry Graham, and then through the 70s, and then, the 80s with Prince. And Prince, and you're in Minneapolis, you said. And I said, yeah, I am. And,
yeah.
And you said, and Corey Wong, and Corey and I are friends. And you said, wouldn't that be great? And I said to you, I know a lot of the legit funk guys in this town, and I will connect you to them. And you said, you looked at me like this through Skype, and you said, and you like pointed, and you said, what is that? And I said, what? And you said, I feel like there might be some imposter syndrome going on there, man. And I said, oh, really?
Really?
Yeah, you did. You said, I don't want those guys. I don't know if those guys are good presenters, or if they can speak about, I want you to do this. You are the guy. I said, I don't know if I'm the guy.
I can't remember
and
saying
you said,
that,
no, you are the guy. And it would,
you are the
dude, I get goosebumps right now just thinking about that moment, man. I was like, whoa. I mean, it like really filled me with this like sense of confidence, and also kind of like, wow, man, I wish that I felt that way about myself, right? And it's so cool to hear you talk too about how you experience imposter syndrome, because everybody listening to this podcast feels like, I don't know if I get in this situation if I'm good enough. I don't know if I get in this situation if I can hang, right? I feel like if I post that thing on social media, my snarky indie rock friends are going to be mean to me. My dad is going to think it's stupid, right? My aunt is going to make some racist comment on Facebook. You know what I mean? Like everybody has this
Absolutely, yeah.
fear that is keeping them. I mean, we're talking about social media here, but really it's about life, right? It's like everyone has this fear of moving forward because of judgment or because of things that they have found, like, imposter syndrome. I'm not good enough. I don't think I can make it. I don't know. This person is better. They have more followers, right? So it's actually really encouraging for me, and I'm sure for everyone else, to hear that you also struggle with these things as well.
Oh man, I think that everybody does. I think that, as I was saying before, I think it's a muscle that you've got to build. I think that I'm absolutely positive of it. I think that there's probably, things that you could put in place. Like every day, you go to the gym. I don't go to the gym. I wish I did. But anyway,
Me neither.
But you get the point, right? Yeah.
Yes.
You get the point, right? Your Peloton bike sitting just in the corner. I know you're feeling guilty about it, Allison.
It's the worst, dude. It's the worst. I got to get on it, man. I got to train for a ride, maybe.
Dude, I'm going to get a Peloton. We're going to go riding. I'm going to be on the Peloton. You're going to be on the Peloton. I'm in.
Are you serious?
100%. Yeah, absolutely, without a doubt.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%.
Then it's on. Dad bods unite.
Yeah. Yeah, but I am really into it. But I think it's a muscle that you can build in terms of leaning over the edge of that cliff. Just, trying to, I don't think it comes overnight. I think what am I like now compared with what I was like when I was like, I don't know, like when I was 30? Like if I look back 10 years ago, I've grown like massively as an individual, but I still have it. I still have those thoughts. They're just different, framed different, and I think that if I, hopefully in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, or wherever I get to, it'll probably be the same slightly. I'll probably have them kind of like internal chatter, but again, I'll have grown that extra bit. I'll have built that muscle. So yeah, it's like really top of mind for me at the minute.
Me too.
Like really, really is top of mind. Just kind of like, just get out your way. Get out my own way.
Yeah.
Put myself in situations that I actually feel really uncomfortable about, and risk falling.
Yes.
Don't be the kid that's scared to get on the bike. Just, I want to get on the bike and I want to fall.
Yes. And there are people that talk about this too. I can't remember, some brilliant person said this, but that you're not the best judge necessarily of your own quality, especially if you have a lot of imposter syndrome, if you feel, I don't know if I want to post this, I don't know if it's good enough. Well, you're not actually the best judge of quality. And
Absolutely.
The best thing you can do is to put it out, see how it resonates, right? In terms of posting, you may put out a post that you think is going to crush, and then it kind of peters and you go, oh, and then you put out something that's just like, I'm going to throw this up today. And there's an authenticity, or there's something that pulls people in that you don't see about yourself. Really that sense that the market or that the audience knows better than you do. And to trust,
they do, don't they? Yeah.
And to trust that, like, well, if this post or this song or, this short film or whatever it is that you're creating in that zone doesn't do well, in a way, like you say, the failure is a gift, right? Because it's going to push you to make something new, to do something else, to go like, wow, interesting. Like, I thought that was going to be great. And to have enough self-confidence to not let that just shatter you, but to say, wow, this post that I didn't overthink did so much better. I wonder if I should maybe be doing some more things like that, right? And kind of let that response.
Because you've got to test it, right? If you don't sort of like put yourself out there to do, especially like in terms of like social media, if you're not putting yourself out there on a consistent basis, you're not going to get a feel for actually what people are enjoying. You're going to be so worried about posting just one thing that you're not actually going to get feedback in terms of, did the audience resonate with it? Is it something that they want more of? Is it something they didn't enjoy? So you're looking for that feedback to give you a gauge on what you can create on your specific, whatever channel you're on, right? And with that, actually, would it be worth defining what a social media channel is?
I'd love to know.
For anybody listening and they're thinking, what is social media?
I'd love to know what you think.
Because
what do you think it is?
I think, Well, with this coming up, I actually had to think about this, like 2 minutes before we jumped online because we didn't know we were going to do this today. But don't tell anybody.
Right.
But I thought to myself, I think a social media channel has obviously it is in the title, right? It's media. So it could be written, but in general, it's going to be. When I think about it, I'm thinking about visual. I'm thinking video,
sure.
right? So it's probably Instagram is visual, but saying that, Twitter as well, Twitter is a social media channel, but Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, obviously. So there's written elements, there's video elements, there is definitely a social side to it. It's social media, right? The social side is the commenting, it's the liking, it's the sharing, it's all of those things together. So for me, a social media channel would be Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Clubhouse now, which is a new one that's come out recently, which is actually audio. It's an audio social media channel, very interesting new platform. And also, in a strange way, YouTube, but I view YouTube more as a search engine rather than a social media
interesting.
channel.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's a search engine. I think there's a crossover with YouTube. It's a little bit of an anomaly. It's got that, people can share, people can comment, people can like, people can dislike.
Yes.
It's got all of that going on, but it's also the second largest search engine in the world.
Yes.
To YouTube, to Google, which is huge.
Right. You want to figure out how to do something, right? You want to figure out, find a manual, find out how to change the oil in your car, find out how to play that,
exactly.
the modes of the melodic minor.
Yeah. Dude, I wasn't searching melodic minor modes at the weekend, but I was out in the camper van with the kids and the wife. We were going away for the weekend. We're like filling up at the gas station. I kid you not. The key wouldn't open the cap.
For the gas cap. Yeah, okay.
So like Lisa and I are kind of staring at it. We're fully packed up, we've got no fuel. We're stood in the gas station trying to figure out it's jammed. So I'm like on YouTube. I'm like, I've got like a coat hanger down it. I'm like,
yeah, man, YouTube to the rescue.
Long story short, we got it off and it was all good. But yeah, YouTube for me is different. How about you? When you think about social media channels?
Well,
what do you think?
To me, the phrase social media has always felt very cold, and I haven't thought about it much. I'll tell you, like, I love your definitions of it. I think for me, it always felt sort of daunting and kind of dumb. I always looked at it with real skepticism, but it was because, here's why. When I started to do Instagram, I thought of my followers as competitors, as haters, and not even as colleagues necessarily, and certainly not as friends, and certainly not as community or family. And the more I did it,
that's so weird.
Yes, and so
that's so weird hearing that coming from you, because you are like, when I saw you on Instagram, I was like, who the frick is this dude? He's like this, like you just drew me in instantly. I was like, you got.
Well, I had a change of heart.
Out of. Okay, let me just put this out there. Out of everybody I've seen for all time on Instagram, anybody, you nailed what it is to actually create value within a community on a platform. That's what you actually did. I was like, he gets it. He's creating this massive amount of value. He's like looking for connection. He's interacting. He's putting a lot of time and effort into it, and it was really great. You presented great, and you just stuck out like a sore thumb, man. And I can remember the first day that I saw you on Instagram, I went to the team, and I was like, you got to check this guy out on Instagram. This is how it's done. This is how it's done.
Crazy.
That is how it's done.
Well, thank you, man. And I wanted to say this because I didn't always feel that way. Because I looked at other cool bass players or musicians, and in the beginning, nobody replied to comments. Right? Like I would see people like Sean Hurley when he first started. He didn't reply to anything. And I thought, oh, well, that must be what you do. Cool guys don't say anything. And I thought, there we go. That's what it is. That's how to be a cool guy. And then the longer I did it, and I would occasionally get a DM or, and I would think, oh, it would be good to answer this question potentially. And for me too, I know that you've consumed some of Gary Vee's content, but he was really influential in the one, in the one area of don't treat these people that follow you like competitors, customers, haters, people that you need to show a highlight reel to. What if you actually started to think about these people that are paying attention to you as loved ones, not even colleagues? But what if you started to think about it like a community? And that word can be so corny, but like, what if you really started to, and if someone said to you on the street, Scott, hey man, I love what you do, you wouldn't turn away from them and ignore them. This idea of treating social media like you would treat an interaction on the street became really compelling to me. Like if a kid walked up to me on the street and said, hey, how do you power your HX Stomp? I wouldn't turn around and walk the other direction. I'd say, oh man, yeah, it's a drag. They give you that big wall wart and you got to put it under your pedal board. And so I write that response to a DM 20 times a day because I think the connection, what I've seen, for me, what social media is it is a connection point with other human beings. And to me, it's a positive. I want it to be a positive connection point for a community with other human beings. I want to unashamedly talk about what it is that I love. And I want to build a community with zero expectation of getting something in return. Or like, now I'm going to, do this thing and ask this big ask of this community. That's the way it started, is very innocently. Like, wouldn't it be fun to try to build this community? And so, yeah.
What for you? What for you? Where was the switch? Was it a sudden switch? Did you wake up and you got it one day? Did you watch a video and you were like, oh, I've been doing it all wrong? Do you know, if you think back and you were like, I just felt like I was cool. I didn't want to interact. I didn't really, I suppose you were kind of like a lot of musicians when they don't fully understand what social media, what these platforms are for.
I had fallen in love with this guy named Chase Reeves, who I know you know.
Oh, Chase.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tried to get him to do, did I tell you this? I tried to get Chase to design my website.
You did?
At one point.
Amazing.
Yeah, I tried to get him to design SBL back in the day. He was doing Fizzle, and he designed their website. And if anybody wants to check this out, it's fizzle.co. It's like it shows you how to build online businesses and stuff like that. Chase was one of the co-founders of that. He was a designer, did a great job. And I was like, man, that guy's a killer designer. So I reached out and he was like, man, I'm just too busy. But he was great, wasn't he? His persona was so good.
He's wonderful. And I love bags. I love backpacks. It's a huge obsession of mine.
Chase has got the bag thing, hasn't he?
Yes.
The bag YouTube channel.
So because of my love of backpacks and bags and all that stuff, I got into listening to him on the Fizzle Show. I fell in love with his personality, and I started to listen to him on the Fizzle Show and started to then get into this thought of like, oh, I wonder what it would be like to create a personal brand, So, but what it was for me, Scott, is briefly, the decade of my 20s, I was in a rock band, an original rock band with my mates from my hometown. And we were going to take over the world. We didn't, of course. And then the entire decade of my 30s, 30 to 40, was all sideman. I played with a bunch of different artists, touring, all that stuff. And there were things about both decades that were wonderful and terrible. And when I turned 40, I had a midlife crisis where I said, I need to take some control over my career, even if it's just felt, even if it's placebo. I need to feel like I'm not at the whim of every artist's tour schedule, record cycle. I need something of my own. And I played with this artist named Eric Hutchinson, and let me just say, he is such a wonderful guy. Apart from being a talented, amazing person, singer, songwriter, we would spend days off and we would go to a coffee shop and he would drink an espresso and we would walk around a city and he would say, let me help you brainstorm this stuff. Like, what if you did a YouTube channel? What if you did? He was instrumental in giving me this confidence and kind of this attention to think about building something like that. And so, yeah, I turned 40 and I said, I want to take this more seriously. I'm going to try to post 5 times a week on Instagram and just see what happens. And it all sprung from that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why really we're here.
That
today,
is why we're
right?
here.
Through just if anybody hasn't sort of like cottoned on, that is why Ian is sitting here. It's how, you know, we found Ian. Like, we found him on Instagram again. You know, we were just like, who is this guy? He's so great presenter. Just, I forgot to say, killing bass player.
Cheers.
You know, like, it just, and we were just like, hey, we need to get him involved in what we're doing. So, and I think that sometimes it is hard for musicians to figure out the why. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, I get this social media thing, but why should I do it? Because they're looking for a reason, right? You practice because you want to get better. You cook food because you're hungry.
Yeah.
I mean, like, there's these things. You put Netflix on because you want to be entertained. Why do musicians do social media? And I think that it's a good case. Like, and I'm interested in your take on that. Like, why do you think, first of all, do you think that all musicians should be looking at the social media channels? Do you think all musicians should be looking at social media channels as something that is important to their career right now?
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's about perspective. If we're just talking about bass players, we all play the bass. And that's not exciting. What's exciting is, Scott, the way you think about the bass. And the more you tell us, the more you talk about how you love Gary Willis, how, you know, you absolutely love these fusion players, the rock stuff that you love. Like, I was so amazed that you loved a P bass. I remember that thinking like, wow, this dude is so interesting because he should just be playing, you know, like if he's a fusion guy, you know, he should just be playing a giant, you know, 6-string made out of all, you know, brambleberry wood and, you know, the finest appointments. you know, but you're playing a P bass and it's like that relic, that white P bass, and it's all like flat wounds, and I'm like, what the hell? And so what it is its perspective. Everyone has a unique perspective on their instrument. And so when anybody ever says to me, oh, I don't know if I'm good enough, I don't know if I've been doing it long enough, I don't know if I have the right gig, I don't know what it's going to do for me, I always try to just shake them and say, it's about your perspective. Whatever you think is cool, whatever you think is important, you should talk about that, because that's what lets us know you. Like, I don't care about how fast anyone can play. I don't care about the licks. I want to see personality. And that's something that I really learned that from you. Like, man, you have this personality in your playing. You have stuff that you talk about that you like. You have stuff that you talk about that you dislike. There's an opinion, there's a voice, there's a perspective, and it's that. And every single musician has that. Whether they know it or not, or whether they've spent time thinking about it or not, they have perspective and they have likes and dislikes and things that they think are cool. And if you show that, that's what draws people in, I think.
Yeah, it's almost like, I think people have got to sort of like suspend disbelief and just kind of get into it without looking for what the end game's going to be, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
And just get going with it. And I think that the same way that, before all of this online shenanigans, right? You know, you'd go down to bars, you'd hang out, and you'd be part of the social scene. And I think it's kind of similar in a way to that. Like, there's a lot, people are socializing online. It's to be involved in that socialization that's going on, those conversations. You've got to be creating value in those communities. You've got to be going in and doing it, right? Otherwise, you're the guy out, everybody's in the pub, and they're all having a great time, and they're all chatting about the HX Stomp, and they're all chatting about the flat wound strings, and you're sitting in the beer garden on your own. You're not inside the pub, and it's time to So, and you didn't really. It was about the hang, right? And I know it's not exactly the same, but it's kind of like that.
So
isn't it? I think that there's a lot of.
Let me ask you this then. I love the analogy of the guy in the beer garden alone. So if you're listening to this and you are the girl in the beer garden alone, Scott, what should she do? What are some first steps that she can take to step into the pub, step out of the beer garden into the pub? That's what I want to know, because you've done it so well. And you're a farm boy. You were talking about sheep dip. You were talking, right?
Sheep dip, dude.
You telling me about sheep dip.
From Cumbria,
yes.
Cumbria, dude. Yeah.
Yes.
I was saying to Ian the other day, I was having. So yeah, I mean, some of you will know exactly what I'm talking about. Your kids get you out of bed too early. You're all flustered. You put your pants on. Your wife's gone to the shops. You're in charge of the kids. You forget to put deodorant on. It gets to the end of the day, you stink like a hound, right? It was one of those days. And I happened to mention to Ian, I was like, I think I need to get somebody to put me in some sheep dip, which is like a tub full of this dip that they put sheep in to get rid of all of the lice. That's what I smelled like. But yeah, I've had a particularly smelly week this week, actually. Even I went to hug Story, my son, yesterday. He was like, Daddy, you stink. I was like,
we just get older and smellier.
Yeah, I was like, dude, it's the dressing gown. He was like, trust me, Daddy, it's not the dressing gown. You stink. I was like, okay, point taken. I'll have a shower.
That's great.
I'm just getting stinky with age. But what should she do? What should she do to get in? I think that it's key to at least find something that interests you, because of the different channels, they're all different, right? So there's Instagram, there's Facebook, there's YouTube, there's TikTok. So let's take some of that out. Yeah. Let's declutter that. Twitter, forget about it. It's been and gone. It's not for the musicians, right? No musicians are hanging out.
I agree.
Twitter, right? So Twitter's gone. Facebook, it's a bummer. Really would. I have not been on Facebook in. I've got no idea. 2 years, 3 years.
It's a bummer.
The only time that I go on Facebook is when Aaron emails me.
Sure.
And if you guys are wondering, Aaron's head of strategy at SBL, and he'll email me like, dude, you need to do something in the Facebook ad account. You know what I mean? You need to like, the cards bounced or something. Go and renew the details. Oh, sorry, Aaron. So that's when I go on Facebook. You're
just putting out fires.
Putting out fires, So Twitter and Facebook, I really, you can kind of sweep them under the table. So that leaves us with Instagram, TikTok, and what was the other one?
Clubhouse.
Instagram,
you talked about Clubhouse.
Oh, Clubhouse. Clubhouse is audio. So yeah, and that's kind of developing. So I think that that's an area that's interesting. But I think that ultimately, if they don't get out of their own way in a kind of way, I think Facebook and Instagram will. Facebook and Twitter are going to introduce products like that in their platform anyway. So yeah, so it almost comes down to TikTok and Instagram in a strange way. I mean, like if you're looking at what you can be involved in. So YouTube.
Of course.
Even though it is a social media channel, but so let's say we've got these three: YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. So YouTube, it depends on what you're trying to do. So if you're YouTube, I would say is that it's harder. Put it that way. It's harder. There's so much on there, and if you're going to be doing long form, like 10-minute videos, it's just harder. It's harder to get seen on that platform. It's harder to produce content for that platform. So it's a bit of a breeze.
Yes.
But if you are really into creating maybe a longer form content, 5 minutes, 10 minutes long, if you've got a clear vision of what you'd like to do on YouTube, I think it could be cool to experiment on that platform for sure, but it's definitely harder than Instagram. With Instagram, I think it's really fantastic. I think it's on fire at the minute. It's the mobile kind of nature of it. It's on your mobile device. Ghetto videos work probably better than highly produced videos. So that means that you can actually just pull out your phone, do a great post.
Yes.
The more authentic it is, the more people are probably going to resonate with it. So I think that Instagram for musicians is a really fantastic channel. And also there's a huge network of musicians on Instagram of all levels, from zero to hero, right? And if you reach out to somebody that has been your hero for the last, I don't know, 5 or 10 years and say, hey, I'm absolutely loving what you're doing. Just wanted to tell you that you're freaking fantastic. They will probably message you back and say, wicked, cheers, dude.
That's what I did
really
to you.
Yeah. Oh, is that what you did to me? Did you contact me before I contacted you?
I mean, I had commented,
maybe,
on many things, and I think I even had said to you at some point. I mean, I'll have to look back, but I think that I said to you at some point, if I can do anything for you, I'm in. Regardless of anything, I'm in.
I think you
I did.
Yeah.
And then
I think you did actually.
And then then I didn't post for about a week, and you went into your stories and said, where has he gone? Everybody, like, Ian, you can't go away. If anybody, go message him and tell him. And I woke up to, 200 new followers and 30 DMs. I was like, what the hell is going on? Right? But
I basically told you what. I was like, dude, where have you gone? Where have you gone?
I was just taking a little break, man. Oh yeah, but that is so true. I preach this a lot. The power of saying, hey, I love what you do. Can I help? Like, hey, I love what you're doing. I feel like I'm good at X, Y, and Z. Can I do something for you with zero expectation and not say, and my day rate is this? None of that. You just try. You get in with value. You try to. That's what I tried to do with you, Scott. I said, is there something of value that I can give to you? And you responded.
Yeah. And now we're here. So I suppose the message is, isn't it, to everybody listening, like, you've got to kind of like create the value in the space, whether it be Instagram or TikTok, and then reach out to people. And it doesn't need to be just other bass players. You can reach out and do collaborations with other musicians. I imagine that the last year has been like so hot for stuff like that. Like, if you have got if you've got like an Instagram account or a TikTok account, you should be creating value, showing what you do, sharing your stories, connecting with the community, but then also reaching out and saying, hey, do you want to do a collaboration on something? To players that you really admire. So for me, I did, like, Josh Smith, for instance, that thing that I did with Josh Smith and Gary Novak last year. It was through Instagram. I just hit Josh up and I was like, dude, I saw that he was on tour. So he was on tour in the UK. So I messaged him and was like, dude, do you want to do something while you're over? We'll record some stuff. He was like, yeah. And then, like, the week before, And then the week before, I was like, the drummer that was going to do it, he can't do it. Do you know any drummers that can do it? He was like, what about Novak? I was like, get out. He was like, let's get Gary Novak. So I was like, okay. Yes, we'll get Gary Novak. So Gary flew over. He got stuck in customs. They nearly sent him back. It's hilarious. But like, there's a whole other story about Gary Novak being stuck in customs. Man. But anyway, but it just shows that same thing. I recorded. We've yet to release them actually, but I recorded like 2 or 3 tracks with Ariel Posen. Whoa. Guitar player, he's killer. Yes. Same thing. Just reached out on Instagram. Hey, do you want to do something?
I mean,
he was like, yeah.
The power of that is so. It cannot be overstated. And I mean, here's the thing too. I feel like when people see that, like, people saw that trio, I saw that trio of yours, and I assumed, it's because, Scott is, this big, business and player mogul, and he knows everybody, he's super connected, they hit him up. I don't know anybody, right? Like, if you think that, It's not true.
There's nothing like
yes.
that. There's nothing like
And
that.
then for me too, and I've told this story before, but with Corey Wong. Now I've known Corey for a long time, and we've done a bunch of sessions before. But I like a lot of musicians, I have a ton of ideas on my phone. So I'll be playing bass, and I'll come up with a little riff, and I'll think that's cool, and I'll pop it in my phone. And then I'll think, and it sort of satisfies this creative thing for the day. But then there it sits, and I have 3,000 stupid little bass riffs on my phone. And I came across one, just kind of going through it one night, that was a slap thing. And I thought, I will never do anything with this like on my own. I'm never going to put out a slap bass record. But it sounds kind of like Corey to me. So I texted it to him, and I said, I don't know, man. This just reminds me of you. Would you like to have it? And he's, like, would you like to do anything with it? So I didn't come in and say, hey, man, you want to co-write this tune and then we'll split the royalties? None of that. I said, do you just want to have it?
All that shit. Yeah.
Yeah. And he said, no, let's write it together. Why don't you come? What are you doing tomorrow? And I said, nothing. He said, why don't you come over? Let's write that tune. Okay. And I went over and we wrote the tune. Every time I send somebody a voice memo of an idea, it leads to something. Now, it may not lead to a song that goes on Corey Wong's first record, but it leads to something. It leads to a conversation. It leads to a coffee. It leads to a year down the road, that person saying, oh, hey, I'm doing this thing. Would you be available for this session? Because they remember that you sent them something that felt like a gift. And that is something that everybody listening to this right now can take out your phone. Like after you're done, here, check this out. After you're done listening to this podcast, get your phone, go through your voice memos, find an idea that reminds you of one of your friends or someone that you think is talented. Send it to them and say, this just made me think of you. Not like, hey, bro, want to write this tune? Want to write this tune? No. Hey, I was going through this, and this sounds like you. I hope this inspires something in you. No biggie, and watch what fucking happens. Something will happen, and if you do that once a week, it will change your life. It will change your life. Sorry to get too.
No, man. It's when you were saying that, I was like, I think it's the opportunity. If you're not involved, just to go back to that, there's like a bunch of, but there's a bunch of bass players all having the best time of their, a bunch of musicians all having the best time of their life inside the pub, and you're the dude or the dudette sat in the beer garden on your own. It's like, it's so rich in terms of the community aspect of it. It's like, it's kind of like part business card.
Yep.
Part kind of Rolodex, part kind of like phone. Do you know what I mean? Like you can build this really fantastic network of people. They can see what you're doing. They can get a flavor for your personality, for your style of what kind of musician you are, all of that stuff. You can reach out to them. You can be like, hey, like whatever. There's so much opportunity there. And to be not involved in that and not do that is it's ludicrous. Yes. It's ludicrous.
Absolutely. And I think in the beginning, if you try your best not to think about it like, oh, I need to increase my networking opportunities. If you try to view it as each person that you interact with is going to has the potential to be like a lifelong connection. Maybe even people that I have met via Instagram that are other great players, bass players, I've had phone calls with where we've just talked about marriage and life. And like, I put up this question, like, hey, ask me anything. And a famous bass player, I'm not going to say who it is, but it's a famous bass player that we all know, sent me a question that said, how do you deal with professional disappointment? And I said, dude, call me. And gave him my number, and he called, and now we chat, we talk, and because of that, then other things will start to happen too, right? So I feel like, especially when you're young, you just sort of feel like, oh, I need to build my network. I need to build this network. If you think about it more like building a relationship, at least that's how I go about it, is think about like each person that you have an opportunity to connect with. really could end up changing your life. And you don't know what that means.
Oh, huge.
They could help you when your mom passes away. They could help get you on a tour. They could, so it's not so much about just like career. It's about like how you want your life to look, right? That's honestly the way I treat it. The way I think about in my Instagram account is like, how can I connect more deeply with people, and how can I make my life and hopefully their lives better?
Yeah. Mike. Seriously. Yeah. No, it's serious, isn't it?
It's serious.
I think that, I think as you were saying that, I was thinking if I was thinking about getting onto social media, I think it's also good the way that you saw Chase Reeves. And if anybody wants to check out Chase Reeves, by the way, he is on Instagram and he is on YouTube as well. He's got a bag review channel. It sounds very boring when I say that, but trust me, it's not. And Chase makes it even better because he's just so great. But what's been really important and continues to be important to me is, and I think that this is what you were leaning into, Ian, as well, is that it's helpful to model people sometimes, to give you kind of sort of like a, do you know when you kind of like learning to play? You're like learning to play other people's licks and stuff. Well, when I watch Chase, I can see, or when I watch you, I can see how you've been influenced by his like the way he presents, his stylistic kind of like, and I think that that's really helpful for people that are getting into it, being able to, can you imagine sort of, trying to play the bass and not taking note of other people that are doing it.
Man, that is a really good point. Yes, that's a really...
Yeah, it's like find people that you can model, not copy, but you can use as sort of
a template.
Inspirational jump off points. Yeah, and I'm trying to do that with everything I do, because I do not want to, if somebody's done it before, I really wanted to learn from them. They've made the mistake for me. I'd rather just model it off that. So take, for instance, Fizzle.co, right, that Chase used to be the co-founder of, or is the co-founder of. SBL, the membership, was modeled on that.
That's amazing.
That it was modeled on that. So I was on YouTube, I was selling these online courses, 17 bucks for an online course or whatever. I joined Fizzle to learn about, how to, create an online business. And I joined, I was like, holy crap, this probably could exist for bass.
Yes.
This membership platform that I've just joined could exist for bass. I looked at what they had, the way that it was structured. I was like, okay. And then I went and did it because they'd done that. So it just sort of like, it reduces the learning curve down. So I, do that. And then I'm always trying to model different, whether it's in sort of like a different niche or not. So for instance, sort of like from a business perspective, I always look a lot at the health space, because it's a massive space. There's a lot of great companies doing a lot of great stuff. So I'm looking and seeing like, is there things that we can model? How do they do sort of like accountability for coaching students within the health space? Is there something that we can learn to bring into the music space? So I'm always trying to look for people that are doing a great job at something and then drawing inspiration from that. And in sometimes just, blueprinting it. Okay, that's working great in that niche. We'll try and do it in ours. So yeah.
That's so critical too. Like for the person outside of the pub, right, that wants to get in, I think that is bang on advice. Find an account that you think is cool or is providing value or that you like to watch or you think is funny or whatever it is. And just do that. And it won't be a direct copy because you're a different person. I think sometimes
it's like trying to play like somebody else. Isn't it? It's never going to happen. You're going to sound like you, whatever you do.
Like, come on. I wish I sounded like Pino on a P bass on any bass. Everybody does, right? And, you just end up sounding like you. And then what's so cool is then as you discover that thing, your voice on the instrument or your voice on your social media channel, you start to embrace and go, oh, maybe I have a thing. but it doesn't start out that way, right? I mean, if you look at my early videos, if you look at your early YouTube videos, Scott, I love going back and looking at your early YouTube videos because your personality is so contained, because you don't know, you're not comfortable enough yet to put it out there. I mean, same for me. If I go way back a few years ago, like I'm like, hey, I kind of, because I'm trying to be cool. I'm pretending.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it takes a while of like modeling behavior, and imitating other things and going, oh, does this feel right? Does this resonate? How can I use this? Before you kind of start to come out the other side, like, I'm not just like Chase. You're not just like, people that you've modeled yourself after, but all that stuff, just like musical influence, goes in and makes you Scott Divine. And it's so critical to not run away from that stuff and just think in a vacuum, who do I want to be? Who do I want to be? Well, try a bunch of stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Man, before it's coming up to like an hour and 10, and thanks everybody if you're still with us, thank you. Before we've got a bunch of stuff on here that we could get into, but let's just do it on a later episode. But I think that just before we close this up, I think we should also talk about consistency, because I think we hopefully, some of the listeners will be thinking, this sounds like something I'm going to do. I can kind of see a reason. I can see a reason of doing this, but I think that without at least touching on consistency, we'll be doing we won't be doing it justice. And like consistency, to Ian's point before, when I messaged him publicly on Instagram, and I was like, dude, where have you gone? Like, I'm missing the content. That consistency is really important. And like, have you got any habits built up internally? Is it? Do you have to do something every day, every 2 days? Like, what is it now?
I wish. I feel like you're going to be a better person to talk about this, because I feel like I need to take consistency lessons from you. Because I am more in the zone of inspiration, and where I'll wake up and I'll think about a post, or an artist that I've worked with has put out a tune and it comes out. Like there's one today, for instance, there's an artist I worked with and her song comes out today, and I really am excited to make a play along for it. So I have less of the discipline around consistency than I should. The thing for me is that I really actually enjoy it. It's not a thing about like, oh gosh, man, okay, I gotta wake up, I gotta do a post today. I wake up and it's the first thing I think about. And I'm like, oh, I'm so pumped to put this post. Or I have a pick and I go, man, the Dunlop Gator grip, this is not a plug for them, but it's like the way that I really feel. I go, man, like the .96, it's the best because it fits right in between the spring and the saddle on a jazz bass. And then you've got a spot to put your pick. And so I wake up and I think about content like that. It's crazy. I will say this, I start to get itchy. I start to feel like, ooh, dang, if I've gone 2 days, 3 days without doing like a main post, I start to think, okay. And then that's sometimes when I go into this zone of like, what can I do that I don't have to kill myself over and, set up my whole shoot? Maybe I'm reposting something that I've posted before. Maybe I'm doing something just where I'm facing the camera. But I try to remove then all of the tech barriers that are going to make it difficult to make a post. But for me, it's too much about inspiration and enjoyment, and I need more discipline. So talk to us, Scott.
Well, I think you're incredibly consistent with it. I do. It's maybe that it's just a little painful.
Yeah.
I mean, see, I mean, like, and I feel that it is sometimes painful to be consistent, because I think it's
never ending, right?
It's never ending, and it's like going to the gym. It's like going to the gym. It's like who really wants to go to the gym? And like, I'm not speaking from experience here, but I'm sure that like my wife, when she gets up in the morning, like every single morning she gets up and she's on that running machine at like 7 in the morning. Trust me, like I see her face. She doesn't want to be on the running machine, but she does it anyway.
It's a goal, right? A long-term something that she's working toward. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just she's just doing it. So I think that, in a way, I think it's getting into doing I say that loosely, but doing social media. Now, if you want to do this thing, I think that there are going to be days. Well, first of all, I think consistency is important, just because that is how you're going to build a somewhat of a following on a channel, people checking out what you're doing, and you'll be interacting and stuff like that. And I think that the barrier to entry is you've got to be consistent. You've got to create value. You've got to be consistent. So. And what does that mean in like brass tacks? It probably means you're gonna have to post once a day or once every 2 days. Like if you're thinking, hey, I'm gonna go smash Instagram and you're gonna do a post a week, it's not gonna happen. The end. Right. It's gonna be, it's gonna be like when I've seen you at your busy, when you've been busy, you're probably on there every single day. And it's, doing stories, and they've all got the graphics on them that you add and stuff, which is all inbuilt in the actual app, but it's still a bunch of time, for sure. Right? So, and people do not take into consideration how much actual effort. They see the story. I see the story, mate, and I know how much effort went into that. I really do. I do. I like it. So if nobody appreciates the effort and the time that goes into it, trust me. But then. And then just sort of like, and being true to yourself, and just accepting of, hey, sometimes you're not going to want to do it, and that's with everything. Like I've been doing YouTube videos for 10 years, trust me, I recorded 2 yesterday. Sometimes I don't need to do them. I don't want to do them, but it's this, I'm in this to make it win. I'm going to push through and do the best job I can. And that's me going to the gym. It's me turning up. It's just me doing it.
And let me add one other thing, though, because if I take a look at SBL on Instagram, SBL posts 4 times a day, sometimes more, sometimes less, on the main feed post. And I couldn't imagine doing that. But you also are smart enough to have help. Right? So you haven't said, okay, I'm just not going to do it because, it's killing me and I can't. You have gotten to a point where you're self-aware and you're enough of a business mind where you say, this thing is really important. I'm not going to always do this. So I need to have help. And you have Pablo, and Pablo kills it. Yeah, right?
Absolutely. Who kills it? Who kills it?
And that's so critical too. So if you're listening to this and you've never done it, okay, that's one kind of thing. You can listen to maybe more of my, thing of like, it's about value and one person at a time, build this community, right? But if you are in a spot where you're like, I've got a business that's kind of stagnant and I don't know where to, or I want to do this thing and I have money, hire somebody or talk to your nephew about doing posting. I mean, that's okay too. Like to have help doing it and to see what it can do for you, what it can do for your business, what it can do for your playing, right? Like it's okay to ask for help.
Hey dudes, so we just got cut off, and I'd love to say that we then hopped straight back on and because we're so committed, but we've both got families and I needed to go and cook the dinner and stuff like that. So Ian was awesome, and he wore the same clothes that he did last time. Me, not so much. I've got I'm dressed in completely. If you're listening to the podcast, obviously you won't actually see any difference. But if you're watching it, because we do have the videos over on scottspacetessons.com, you will see that I have just changed shirt. And it's similar, but different. Anyway, Ian, you were just saying that if people can't do it all on their own, it is okay to ask for help and get, whether it's like a family friend or somebody like a VA, virtual assistant, or somebody like that you can get to help you out. And I think that ultimately, I think that you're absolutely right, and I think that it will be helpful for people to understand that it's maybe a different strategy and different fit for where you are in terms of your life cycle on social media, for instance. So we talked earlier about modeling and kind of like modeling people. And for those of you guys, and girls obviously, I say guys loosely because when I walk into the kitchen and it's like Lisa and my mum, for instance, I also say, hey guys. So I'm definitely not discriminating here. Yeah, I do mean all you girls listening as well. So for you guys that are thinking about just getting into this, you'd probably be more you're probably modeling people that are kind of just sort of like, what's the word? Solopreneurs, or, solo, like, what's the word for a musician like this? So like, yeah, freelancers who are out there doing it rather than looking at, I'm trying to think of a big bass Instagram channel or Facebook channel, other than like Base the World or something, who's sort of like it's a big business and they've got all of that stuff going on. It's always good to kind of find model somebody that's in alignment with where you are and within your vision of what you're trying to build. And it's kind of like when I'm kind of like, because I'm a big modeler, I always try and model people, but I'm also trying to be conscious of I suppose sort of like moving within certain parameters. I don't want to kind of sort of like shoot. I'm not trying to be Amazon, right? When I'm modeling somebody,
sure.
I'm not trying to be Amazon. I'm trying to be somebody maybe that's 50% bigger than who I am, or I mean, within the realms of reality, basically.
But having some self-awareness around where you are in this journey, right? And I totally get that, because thinking about just starting out on social media versus where SBL is, and you have some help, but you have the resources to hire some folks to help, right? But if you're just starting out, you may not have those resources. But I don't want to say, oh, well, you know what? If you don't love this, you just have to slog through it, and you gotta, you just gotta do this, and you can have no help. And I think you can think about what other businesses do on a smaller level. You can think, does your little sister love to do TikTok? Like collab with her and do some stuff, like find someone who actually thinks that social media is awesome and talk to them about their perspective. Even if, you're not paying them to help you, talk to them about their healthy perspective. If you can think of anyone that has a healthy perspective on it, talk to them and just see what they can give you. And maybe they'll give you some good tips. Maybe they'll offer to help. But it's really, really dangerous, I think, just in terms of your progression, in terms of how you engage in this market. It's not dangerous. It's just dinosaur to think like, I don't need to do this. I'm not going to do it. It's like, well, you're really limiting your opportunities then if you think that way. So just give us some people that dig it.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. And also, we haven't talked much about the raw tactics as well, but when it comes down to it, something that's really helped me in the past, because it can be daunting. Like just, a while ago we were talking about, hey, you really need to be consistent. You need to post regularly every single week, and I'm not talking about once a week, you're probably talking, you're posting a few times a week. In terms of that, what can really help is if you batch things. Like, everybody listening, you've got to get into batching. You have to get into batching. And just like, it's been huge for me in the past. So when I'm recording YouTube videos, I'm never, ever, ever going to record one YouTube video. I want to record like 2 minimum, but I've I've recorded up to 6 on one day. And I've got like a change of clothes, and I'm changing clothes and all of that. That's how I do it. And on Instagram or Facebook, same deal, okay? So I'm always trying to batch stuff, always trying to be as efficient as I can with my time, because it just, when you're in the creative space, or this is what I find, when I'm in that creator space and my brain's tuned in, I want to really leverage that while it's there, because it's not always there. Sometimes I don't want to do it, so I really force myself to get in that zone. And also just to point out that sometimes it takes a little while to get in the zone. Sometimes it does take a little while to get in the zone. Sometimes I've recorded, especially when I'm batching some YouTube videos. In fact, several times I've recorded 4 in a row, and the first one I recorded that day, we'll delete it and I'll record it again at the end of the day, because I'm just not happy with, I wasn't in that flow state. I was just kind of like, shaking off the rust. And I was like, my presenting chops are a bit crap at the minute. So yeah, we'll go back and do that. So like when you do batch them, even though it's more work up front, in the long run, it actually decreases the amount of time from a sort of like,
absolutely.
from a just raw, the time that you're putting in, but also from creative time as well.
Yeah. And if you're thinking at all about setting up mics or setting up lights, or like I just had my light die on me right now. So I'm like, scrambling to like thinking about batching in that way is fantastic too, right? Because it takes a long time to get that set up, whether someone is helping you out with it or you're doing it all on your own, getting your space set up to record. Oh my gosh, getting the camera right and the lights and everything. And then if you just do one small thing, and then you're going to tear it apart to do some other project the next day. Wow. I mean, and that's something that I feel like I need to work on. Like hearing you say that, I'm like, man, I have never done 6 YouTube videos in a day. But that's a goal. Yeah. Like I really, I mean, I really do need to glean some of that discipline and inspiration off of you, because I'm more of a like, okay, I've got it, I've got it set up and I'm going to do one. And then, I go in a different direction. But that is excellent advice. It's advice that I need to take.
Man, dude, I used to, like, I haven't always been like this. I used to release one video every 2 weeks, and I thought that was a heavy workload. I swear. I was like, woo, I'm on fire. So I mean, I really thought that I was killing it. Like, one video every 2 weeks. Man, watch out. I'm coming for you. And,
I mean, and perspective, like, if that compared to nothing is killing.
Yeah, that's true, actually. Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you can't start out like being Scott Devine crushing 6 YouTube videos a day. It's like working out, right? Or it's like, it's like getting on the bike, right? It's something that you have to start out with a manageable thing and then hopefully grow to those levels. But you can't, like, I mean, I don't know, maybe some people could get in and just start crushing 6 a day, but
I certainly couldn't.
It's not me.
I certainly couldn't. And you know it as well as I do, that the actual filming of it is, here's the deal. I absolutely think that you could crush easily. I think that you could crush 8 YouTube videos a day. It's the preparation, man. It's the preparation.
Yes, it is.
Specifically for YouTube videos. Oh, it's killer.
Oh.
It's killer.
It's killer.
Maybe that's a conversation for another day where we can like weep on each of the shoulders. It's killer, isn't it? Like that is some. Yeah. That's a conversation right there. Yeah, for sure. And with Instagram, obviously the barrier to entry in terms of creating video content is a lot lower than YouTube. You can do short clips and stuff like that. So, dudettes, start easy.
Start easy. Yeah, and Instagram, I heard someone say recently, like, it's bite-sized art. There are a lot of people that bemoan, what's happening. Instagram is making things so shorter, but that for some creators, thinking about making an 18-minute YouTube video with all the cuts and the production and everything is just overwhelming. Whereas you can go on Insta and make, bite-sized art where, like, you can put some time into a 30-second thing that feels maybe doable versus the incredible amount of work that it would take to make, a monster long-form YouTube video.
Absolutely. Side note, that YouTube have actually released something called YouTube Shorts recently.
Yeah.
I think it's I've seen, like, I just literally did a 20-minute presentation to the team just before this, actually. You messaged me, I was like, just give me 5 minutes. I did like a 20-minute presentation to the team, like Phil, Nate, and Pablo, about YouTube Shorts. This is what it is, and we should really look into this specific new content type on YouTube, because we want to be looking for leveraging emerging new technologies on these platforms, format types, basically. Because and this is, I'm going a bit tactical here, but what happens for anybody that's interested in this is when a platform such as IG or Facebook or YouTube, when they release a new feature specifically around content. So if you're an IG user, something like Reels, for instance, IG Reels, because they want their user base to really pick up that new feature and run with it, they over-index on it. So they start sharing that out more than anything else. And that's what we've seen. Look at the analytics on IG. Our Reels are getting way more interaction and way more subscribers than the other format types on Instagram. So I'm always looking
because they want it to do well.
To do well. They need to.
Yeah.
They need to introduce this new content type to their user base. So they need to put a certain amount of firepower underneath it. And that exact same thing, I think, is happening on YouTube. If anybody's wondering what YouTube Shorts is, it is kind of says it on the packet. It's short form content on YouTube under 60 seconds in 9:16 ratio, which is specifically catering for mobile. It's really for that mobile experience, which is where that goes on YouTube. Yeah, where that goes on YouTube, it's going to be really interesting. And what we're going to be doing is testing that out over a 2-week period, probably uploading a YouTube short every single day for like 14 days, just to see how the platform interacts with it, because it depends. We're going to be uploading videos, we're going to be looking at user comments and just seeing how the audience feels about it. They might dig it, they might hate it. We'll be looking at the numbers,
sure,
everything in between, trying to figure out whether that's a new move or direction that we should go in. But man, it's the game of it.
And something too to say, like if all this seems so daunting, like I think, Scott, you said this earlier, that you can pick. You don't have to do all of this stuff. If you love doing long form stuff, maybe you're doing a podcast. If you love doing short form stuff, maybe you're looking on Insta, you're looking on TikTok, but you don't have to start out going, okay, I have to have all of this stuff together. I think there are some content creators out there that are like, you have to have killing Snapchat, you have to have LinkedIn on point, you have to have your Twitter game. Like, I feel like you just have to do what you like.
People look at Gary
and
Vee,
so if you're
and
excited
I need to be Gary Vee. Inside information. Information from VaynerMedia is Gary's content team just for him, is 32 people. 32 people.
And that's about as big as SBL total,
exactly,
right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he's got 32
that's
people just working on his content. Yeah. And they're apparently always 2 to 3 days away from running out of content. Now, when I heard that was before the pandemic. So I'm sure that they're having to go into the stockpile of content that they've created over the last few years and really start repurposing a lot of that now, because obviously his strategy before the pandemic was that he had a videographer with him all the time. All the time of his working day, they'd make a mini documentary out of it every single day for the most part. D-Rock, and then that would be chopped up and syndicated onto all of the platforms in mini content. Like, it was a whole strategy. But if you look at, like, oh man, I'm getting super nerdy here. Let's call it after this. But I don't want to go super nerd, but I keep a lookout on all of the subscribers for people's, like, specifically the people that I follow. I watch their view counts and their subscriber rates as well. And I'm talking, like, I'm nerdy about it. I've got like analytics, so I can see exactly how many subscribers they've got over the last month, over the last 6 months, over the last year. And he specifically, that channel, Gary Vee's channel, got hit really hard by the pandemic because he couldn't create that content that he was creating, because the format type for us, for bass players, for musicians, format type is really important. Yep, like, it worked for him, that specific format type that he was creating, where somebody was following him around every day. That really worked for him and his audience.
Yes.
For bass players and musicians, that's not going to be the deal, right? So, but I think that the takeaway is that just to pay extra notice to format type, like, what is the length of video? What's the style of video? What can people see the fingerboard? Can people not? I mean, like, all of that really matters in terms of whether people are going to really resonate with the content and all of that good stuff.
And I think too, see if you agree with this, Scott. I think if you're starting out, and again, I just want to make sure that if you feel this burn or this conviction of, like, oh, I haven't really done this and this seems too intense, or like, I don't know if I can do it, I don't know that I even want to think about format type or any of that. If you just start with something that you like, right? Like, Scott, if you think about when you were just starting out, you weren't thinking about all this stuff, right? Like you were, I imagine, or at least for me, when I started out, I had this idea of playing, like the synth sound over a track that I played and just showing people how I did it.
Absolutely.
And my lighting was crap. My sound wasn't great, but just the process of starting and making sure that you're doing something that you like. And if that's at the heart of it, then the game and looking at formats, that will just come naturally. But you have to make sure that the content you're putting out, you believe in and you're excited about. Like I wake up every day and I'm excited about the content I'm going to be making because I genuinely really like doing it.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing you have to have. Like, so before you start thinking about all this other stuff that we've been talking about, I think it's important to make sure that you have this idea in mind of like, oh, I'm going to make this thing. And I think it's really going to be cool.
Yeah.
And that's like the seed of
It's the paralysis of getting going, isn't it? It's
yes.
It's taking the first step. I'll tell you what it is. It's and I think that we all do it to a certain extent. I'll give you one something I've been doing recently that's exactly like that. And then also a friend's experience. So a friend of mine is ripped, dude. He's like a machine. He's like 6'2". He's got his like I don't even know what's this muscle called. Your bicep. His bicep is bigger than my thigh.
I think so.
It's bigger than my thigh.
Right.
He's massive. And he laughs. And he's like, dudes come up to him and like, oh yeah, I'm like, I want to kill it in the gym and stuff like that. And they're asking him questions and they're like, but I don't want to be as big as you. So what am I and he always comes back with the same thing. He's like, dude, stop worrying about being as big as me. He said, you don't look like you're in the gym. He said, once you get in the gym,
right.
You look like you've gone to a gym for a few months. Then we can have a conversation about you don't want to be as big as me, and then you can navigate around that. He said, but ultimately, you haven't even been in a gym yet, so don't worry about it. So, and his point is, you just don't worry about the hard stuff. Just get going, get moving, get just in the gym, and then just start. And for me, that's like the thing that's been kicking my ass recently is that I would really love to be more healthy. We spoke about the Peloton bike. I'm going to get a Peloton bike. Like that is going to happen.
Let's go.
But let's go. Yeah, I just need to do it. I just need to do it and stop talking about it. And
let's go.
Thinking about it. Oh yeah. Oh.
Join Scott and I on some Peloton rides. We'll get it going, man. We'll do an SBL Peloton ride.
Just before we hit record today, Ian and I last week were like something that I've really wanted to do for years is cycle down the west coast of the US, right? From Vancouver or wherever, like Seattle or whatever, all the way down to Mexico. Apparently it takes around 30 to 40 days. I've always wanted to do that. And we talked about it last week, or maybe the week before. I want to do it. I want to do it with you as well. But then just before I hit record, I was like, real. How many bass players or musicians could we actually get to join us on that ride? That would be wild.
So fun. I mean, and too, like, I was thinking about this too, because, okay, you sent me that, you sent me Long Way Around, you and Gregor series around. And so then you're like, I want to do this. Like, let's do it together. And I'm like, on motorcycles? And you're like, no. Like, let's cycle down the West Coast. I'm like, oh, that would be so sick. I mean, my brain has been going on that ever since. And I even had this idea too of like, what if people join us for a day? Like as we roll through different parts, like if someone can hop on for a couple of days,
exactly
right? That'd be so fun. It's like, oh, it's John Button from The Who, and he's joining us for a couple of...
That would be amazing.
That dude looks like he cycles,
John would be down for it. Rufus Philpott is an actual cyclist. Lefebvre is Lefebvre's really into cycling.
That's right.
We could have like a full cycle troupe.
All you guys just leaving me in the dust.
Oh, me as well, man.
I'm the guy in the back. I'm like huffing and puffing in the back, like, guys, help.
Oh man,
it would be incredible.
It'd be amazing. It'd be amazing. I'm trying to think of where to send people if they want to do that. Maybe we'll discuss it in a future episode. We'll maybe have like we'll put up a page or something that people can like opt into, like I'm interested in the West Coast Adventure page or something like that, and they can just bob their email in there, and then we can hit them up and say, hey, here's the dates. This is when we think about doing it, 2022. And then just shoot.
Can you imagine, dude?
Yeah.
I mean, I envision this is ridiculous, but I even envision, bass around the campfire.
Yeah.
Like little practice amps, and we're roasting marshmallows, playing bass.
We could even get a different, like, other musos out. We could broaden the spectrum. We could have some guitar players, some drummers. We'll get Mike from Mike Johnson from Mike's Lessons down. He's so.
Let's go.
Oh,
yeah,
my word.
It's so
It'd be
fun,
amazing, dude. Anyway, let's wrap it up, guys. Thanks so much for listening. I think we've been maybe going for like an hour and a half now. So if you're still with us right at the end of this, we love you. Obviously,
we love you.
We do. It would be amazing if you could leave us a review on, I don't even know where you leave reviews these days, but like definitely on iTunes, definitely on Stitcher. Leave a review, subscribe to the podcast. And if you're wondering how, I'm not sure we mentioned how regular these are going to be. We're aiming to do these weekly. And they're all going to be like this. They're just going to be open conversations where we kind of explore our own thoughts and hopefully deliver value to you guys. And we'll maybe understand ourselves better at the end of the podcast. And maybe you, and maybe you guys listening in will also understand yourselves and Ian and myself a little bit more at the end of the podcast. But anyway, dudes, thanks so much. And we'll catch you in the next one.